My son and I love a few certain characters from the books we've read out loud over the years. Gum Baby from Tristan Strong, Boots from Gregor the Overlander, Maniac McGee. For my daughter, it's Junie B. Jones and Ramona. For me, it was always Anne of Green Gables, of course, that I returned to growing up, and Joe from Little Women. Oh, and of course, Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. Incredible characters are everywhere we turn in literature, and they make such an impact. We see through their eyes, experience their transformations, build empathy through their experiences. Maybe that's why when I think about characterization, I tend to think about activities that showcase characters visually, that come at them from many different angles, that require students to consider their evolution, their growth, their nature versus their nurture. Because sure, by all means, let's talk about what it means for a character to be flat or round, static or dynamic, but then let's build on that and go much further. Today on the show, I'm sharing 6 creative characterization projects I've come up with over the years in hopes that 1 or 2, maybe 3, will fill a hole for you. I love them all for different reasons, and I hope you will too. Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast, a podcast for English teachers looking for more creativity, more engagement, more joy, and no more scripted curriculum, lesson planning ruts, or boring book lists. I'm Betsy Potash, and I'm honored you're trusting me to help. You're not alone on this creative journey anymore. Okay, first of all, we have the Open Mind Project. I have come up with a lot of different spins on this over the years, but the basic idea is that you give students a piece of paper with a head on it, a blank head. They are going to be filling that head in with whatever is swirling around inside their character's mind. So you can frame this however you want. These are some of the expectations that I've shared. Maybe they're going to put in adjectives to describe their character, quotations that help define a character, the character's desires, dreams, strengths, weaknesses, personal history. Maybe the student is going to add some analysis of how the character is growing and changing and transforming. They can show key connections and relationships to other characters. Is this character a mother or a sister or a teacher? What kind of relational description can they add to their open mind? Then they want to think about motivation. What is making this character do the things they do? Everyone is motivated by something. What are they interested in? What are their passions? And then for me, because I like to make it visual as well as full of text, I might invite students to consider how can they make some things bigger than other things to show their importance? Or how can they use different colors or shapes or types of text, fonts or lettering to help highlight what's going on inside a character's mind? How can one thing that's in like a tiny black and white box show sort of its relative importance compared to something else that's maybe like huge and in italicized font and red? I don't know. How can they play around with color, imagery, visual symbolism, size, shape, location within the mind to help showcase the nature of this character? I feel like this assignment can seem kind of basic, but actually when I have done it and I have explored and kind of experimented with making it complex, it's actually just a really interesting challenge to try to represent the totality of a character from beginning to end inside one mind, right? Just like it's hard to get to know one person who has one mind quickly. There's just so much to consider, so much to think about. So I think this can be a really cool project. It can be a final assessment, or it can be like an activity that launches into a discussion or a piece of writing about a character. Okay, next up, I want to talk about the characterization one pager. You know how I feel about one pagers. Maybe you feel the same way. When I designed my version of a characterization one pager, I went ahead and broke up my template, my page for students, into 4 quadrants so that they could be looking at these sort of 4 mini one pagers for 4 different characters. You could also do one big character right in the middle of the page. But what I kind of like about the 4 different quadrants is that students have a chance to see the contrast between characters. So what I did is I put in kind of like little cartoon people in the middle of my 4 quadrants. And then I invited students to put in kind of the usual things about character that you might find in a one pager. So I asked them to put right in the middle of the face one adjective that they felt like most described that character. And then all around it is like imagery and quotes and analysis and descriptors that highlight that character. But because you see the 4, you can kind of compare what is happening in the minds and around the character for all these different people in the book. And it's kind of an interesting look at multiple characters at the same time. Okay, next is an activity that I just designed last week, actually, because I've been looking at A Christmas Carol all month, and I really wanted to think about the character of Scrooge and his transformation, and how could that be represented in a way that would really bring it to life to students. And what I ended up doing was taking theater masks, just a black and white image of theater masks, and considering how can we put Scrooge in like the frowny face theater mask on the left. That's the first Scrooge. And then the smiling face theater mask on the right, that's the second Scrooge. And how can I get students to kind of fill those masks in a way that's representative of the transformation? So showing aspects of Scrooge's character to the left, how he begins, and then to the right, how he transforms. And this was such a fun project for me to make the model of, that now I think it could be interesting with any character that experiences a huge transformation, particularly if it's a play, since the sort of canvas is theater masks. But I had such an interesting time thinking about like, what kind of words was I going to put in the mouth of the sad theater mask versus the happy one? What was I going to put in the eye? What kind of imagery was I going to put behind the white theater mask? I sort of chose like these different gray watercolor swirls on the left and gold watercolor swirls on the right. And I had fun just sort of choosing imagery that would reflect the incredible change in mood from the beginning to the end, and searching for like that one perfect quotation that really summed up Scrooge at the beginning, and then showed off his just pure joy and zest for life at the end. And it was just a really fun project. So now I'm excited to share it. I'm going to go ahead and put the model in my full show notes so you can see it, because I think you have to see it to kind of visualize how it works. But it's another really fun way to bring a character's transformation onto a piece of paper. Okay, next is an activity that's a bit quicker. This is something you could do any day you're talking about character. It doesn't take, days and days and final assessment time to get to this. But 6-word memoir is just such an interesting medium in my mind, and it can be used for many more things than letting students reflect on their own lives. And one thing that I think it's great for is really examining a character. And you could almost do like a series of 6-word memoirs about a character. The 6-word memoir that would represent them when the book begins, that would represent them when they're like getting into conflict, that would represent them as they're sort of dealing with the conflict and getting out the other side, that would represent them at the end. It could be really cool to see like an evolutionary 6-word memoir with 4 side by side showing a character's transformation. But whether you do an evolution or you just do one, this is a nice way to invite students to really boil down a character and think like, what is the driving force for this character, the most important thing about their background, what has led them to this moment. And then you can have students, you can have everybody choosing different characters. You can have them do their 6-word memoir and then explain it. Why did they choose these 6 words of all the millions of words available to them? Okay, Another idea for exploring character, this one isn't so much a solo operation. It's a hexagonal thinking discussion around character, but I like the idea of creating kind of a visual for the characters you want to explore on the hexagon. So you could do this in different ways. You could do little hexagonal one-pagers, or you could invite students to just fill a hexagon with everything they can think of about a character. You could have them draw the character and then write descriptors around it, whatever. So, but fill hexagons with character analysis, and then maybe throw in some more character or some more hexagons that are a bit more average, like your normal hexagons, a hexagon with themes, like theme hexagons, hexagons with quotations, hexagons with connections to the real world. But kind of the star of the hexagonal thinking activity is going to be those character hexagons that really dig deep into characterization. And then have a hexagonal thinking discussion with that like really clear visual and mental focus on character. Okay, last but not least, this is a fun one, again, just like a bit quicker, and that is to annotate an image of a character. So there's a few different ways you could do this. You could just put like a silhouette of a character and then have students kind of go in and say, okay, this is Pony Boy. What can I put in? What kind of little like black line to the eyes, and then write greenish gray eyes, black line to the hair. He's got long hair. That shows that he's a greaser. He's holding hands with Cherry. That shows his willingness to like cross the social lines of his group. Like just different things like that, where it's just really about what they can find in the text to express the character through the image. You could also do something where you would snag a screenshot from a film or television version of a book. And that could be really interesting because then you can invite students to be annotating the image, but also asking themselves, do they think it's a good representation? So that takes it a step further and adds this argument element. So they're going to annotate the character, whether it's like an artist's illustration or a film still of a character that they're getting to know. And then they're also further going to ask the question, do you agree? Do you think this film director or this artist represented the character in a way that you really believe in? Okay, my friends, so those are 6 visual twists on characterization, and we can just review them real quick. There's the open mind, there's the characterization one-pager, there's the before and after masks showing character transformation, there are 6-word memoirs, there's a hexagonal thinking discussion with a real focus on characterization, and there's annotating a character image. If you would like to see all the visuals, and this podcast really cries out for you to see all the images, just head over to the full show notes at nowsparkcreativity.com. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay creative.